Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Mind Shifters Radio with your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeannie. Michael and Jeannie share with you the wisdom of the ancient Aramaic internal process of forgiveness. They offer tools and support 5 days a week. They will support you in building a solid foundation within yourself to live in pure love. In Aramaic, Rachma. Michael is the author of So Why Is This Happening to Me Again? For more information on Michael and Jeannie, please visit www.whyagain.com. And now your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael and Jeannie Ryce.
To the brightness within you and the truth that is rooted within me.
Hi, and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce. Today is Memorial Day Celebration 229. And we've got several people already in the chat room. Welcome. Our call-in number is 646-200-4169. Press 1 to talk to Michael, and we'll put you in queue. And David's already on the phone with us. And hello, Michael.
Hey, sweetie. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's a delight to be here and a delight to be supporting you in the process of forgiveness. I'm doing the show today from an awesome place, and, one of the things we've been talking about is turning this into a television show where we'd have video as well, but there would certainly be some disadvantages because I wouldn't be able to be sitting in a golf cart in South Florida playing golf while I'm doing the show. Of course, I'm not going to play golf while I'm doing the show. I've told the other three guys in my foursome that I'm going to deke out for an hour to play with you, so we're delighted to be here, and our show, of course, is about the ancient Aramaic tool of forgiveness, and the corollary tools. Our invitation is that we together choose to put an end to the state of war on planet Earth. And, of course, how are we going to do that? Well, somebody in our workshop last night was talking about the shift takes place when you get to the square root of 1% of the population. And I think we're getting there. I think we're getting to critical mass. There was a physicist 2,000 years ago that said a little leavening leavens the whole loaf. And I think we can safely assume he wasn't talking about bread. He was talking about those who live an actual human life. And if you have a question about what a human life is, hold a newborn child, you know exactly what you're designed to function as. It is the active, awesome presence of love. When we're not functioning as that, when we're not feeling that in our physiology, we have a problem. And our work is about restoring people who have that problem, who live in hostility and fear, and don't know that a human life is really the active presence of love and functioning out of that. So that's where we're heading. If you're not familiar with that conversation, how are we going to put an end to war? Well, when we get a critical mass of people who will stop playing the game that everybody else is responsible for their hostility, for their fear, when everybody else is the problem in their lives. And if you've ever said to somebody, you really have a problem, the question I ask you when you say to somebody, you really have a problem is, if they're the one with the problem, why are you the one with the pain? Think about that for a minute. You're the one with the pain because you're the one who has something going on inside of you that doesn't belong in a human form. And when you choose to forgive, you remove that from you. The world teaches us, because the world likes to keep us in our hostility and fear, the world teaches us that forgiveness is about letting somebody else off the hook for what's happening inside of us. It has nothing whatsoever to do with forgiveness. It's a Greek act of pardoning. We've been sold a Trojan horse. What we're looking to do is to restore the original of forgiveness. And if you want to learn more about how that works, please go to our website, www.whyagain.com, and on the right-hand side there's a link that says download worksheets. I apologize if there's some jiggling of golf clubs in the background. I'm stuck on a golf course here. I just have no choice. But anyway, on the right-hand side of whyagain.com, you'll see a link that says download worksheets. The first 4 links in that section will tell you the whole story of how forgiveness works. And so we invite you to download those 4 links. You'll hear exactly how forgiveness works. You'll have a copy of the reality management forgiveness process, and that's what's used to remove hostility and fear from your physiology. We get a critical mass of people doing that, and guess what? the blame game on planet Earth is going to disappear. When the blame game disappears, people are restored to human life. Guess what? Human life can't make war. That's what we're going to do. So we're delighted that you're here. Welcome to the show. Gee, do we have any callers? Is Dr. Tim with us? David, how are you this morning, this afternoon?
I'm doing well, Michael. Glad to hear you're getting some fun time in. And things are going well here at Heartland. Looking forward to the season and people coming and playing.
Awesome. Is Dr. Tim with us yet?
He is not with us yet. And since you were enjoying the sun and golfing in Florida, Vicki in the chat room says that they've got snow in eastern Kentucky, and she actually has a snow day off. And I said, well, we've got snow here in Tennessee, too, and it's 24 degrees. So what a difference.
I so wish I could be there in that snow and 24-degree weather. I really, it just really touches my heart that I can't be in the snow in the 24-degree weather.
The first day I've been able to wear my winter boots, so that's okay.
All right. Well, I'm glad you're happy wearing your winter boots. And, I just don't think humans are designed for that kind of stuff. So in any event, has anybody got any questions in the chat room, or do we have any callers? Our calling number, by the way, is 646-200-4169. Excuse us, that was the cart backing up. 646-200-4169. If you want to call, if you want to talk to us, we would love to support you in whatever's going on in your world.
And we do have a caller. Area code 970. You're on the air.
Hi, Michael, Jeannie, and everyone. This is Carrie in Colorado.
Hey, Carrie, welcome to the show. Delighted you're here.
Thank you. Yesterday I was asking you a few questions about how we work around anesthetization and the different things we anesthetize with, and then how we know we have real love in a relationship. And I just wanted to share with you really quickly, I had told you I had that relationship breakup last spring, and I've kind of gone on with my life and was in Florida for 6 months, and now I'm back at a job in Colorado, which I'm really excited to be at, even though it's chilly here. It's beautiful sunshine, really a great, wonderful place. And I had asked the guy that I will now call my ex if he would consider doing some of this forgiveness work with me and just kind of work on it together, because we trigger each other so well just by phone, because he's about 5 hours away from me, so we're not in real close proximity. And he said yes, and he was going to call on Sunday, but he ended up being busy on Sunday, so he called me the night before last, and we actually spent an hour and a half doing some worksheets together, and different ones, and that was very, it really put me into asking myself, because I don't necessarily see it as something that's going to take us back into relationship with each other necessarily, but I ended up feeling some confusion as a result, because I thought, I still care about this person, but there were a lot of things that were not healthy about our relationship, because we got in the relationship when we didn't have these tools, and we accumulated a whole mechanism of cooperating together, or codependency, that was not very healthy. And so now we're trying to unravel it a little bit. So I ended up asking myself a lot of questions about anesthetization and how do you know what a really healthy relationship is. And I realized some of the worksheets I did last night on my resulting feelings were around not even trusting myself to be able to know what a healthy relationship is, or to choose a healthy relationship, because as a child I wasn't really given much opportunity or supported in making my own choices. I was kind of dominated and directed. So it's really neat to be looking at all that stuff and kind of opening it up and reframing it through the forgiveness sheets and making myself access this new level of love and relationship to all these things. And I think what I woke up with this morning is I'm now feeling myself open to a relationship again. And I don't know who it will be. I don't know that it would be this person who's my ex. It's going to be somebody that I can have a healthy relationship with. and so I'm not going to judge who that is. So I guess I was just curious about your input on those things.
So first thought I would offer is you might not want to X anybody out.
Okay.
Once you're in a relationship, you're in a relationship for eternity. You've got a former, but Xing people is not a very kind thing to do.
Okay, that's a nice thought.
And it's going to be pretty much when you live in that world of, what were your words? I was abused and directed. I was.
Yeah.
What were the words you used?
Well, what I did a worksheet on was with my dad, and how there was a lot of criticism, and I guess there was a lot of domination with his ideas and not much space or support for me to express my own, but kind of doing that worksheet helped me realize I can express my own ideas, you know. You still there?
I'm here, yes. Recognize that there was a power person dynamic. And the power person dynamic, if it was to dominate and direct, then when the stress is up and the chips are down, notice that's what you do. You dominate and direct.
Okay.
So as long as you have those brain cells, and we're not looking to reframe anything here. A certain amount of reframing happens, but the goal is not to reframe. The goal is to forgive. The goal is to literally remove that energy from our structure so that it no longer controls us. Whenever somebody is under stress, there are three levels of behavior possible when we enter into a relationship. If we had a power person in our lives, and a power person by definition in this work, from our codependence to interdependence work, is that person who had more control over our lives than we did, and they weren't functioning out of love. The rest of our lives, until we remove, not reframe, but remove those energetic dynamics from interaction with the power person, which have been going on for generations in most people's bloodlines, unless we remove those, there are only going to be three behaviors possible, and that is, when there's no stress, we'll do whatever we did to get along with our power person. When stress starts to build, we'll tend to move into doing what we did to resist and survive with our power person. When we become ultra-stressed, we'll do exactly what our power person did that we hated the most. That's going to run you. Now, as long as those dynamics are in you, you're going to look out through those brain cells, and you're going to be attracted. You're going to see someone, you're going to tap into someone who matches that energy and will give you the opportunity to forgive, will give you the opportunity to remove that. And as you recognize that, you can recognize the chances of really creating healthy relationship are pretty slim. But what you can do is that you can create relationship where you work in an interdependent fashion rather than a codependent fashion. Instead of the language being, you made me, look at what terrible thing you've done to me to make me feel this way. Well, whatever it is you're feeling, you felt it over and over and over again all your life. So when you stop playing the codependent game, you made me, and you put the power out there, you bring it back inside. When you choose to create relationship based in that, then you end up creating the same dynamics as the good old family feeling. You'll be attracted to set up whatever went on in your family system because that's what's comfortable to this carbon-based memory device, this body-mind unit. Where the change comes in is when you create relationship that has this conversation about, I realize I'm carrying some garbage into our relationship, and I've noticed that you have a little too. How would you like to create a relationship where through our interaction we choose to heal? Through our interaction we choose to be responsible for what comes up in us because it's going to come up. There's no way it's not going to come up if you carry it into a relationship. It always amazes me how many people go into a relationship with all the drama and trauma of their original home, of their first relationship, their second, their 10th relationship. They walk into a new relationship, they've resolved nothing, and they hope and pray that this relationship is going to be different. And then when it's not, when they feel what's inside of them, they go into codependence and blame the person they're in relationship with. Instead of go, hey, Charlie, I'm feeling it again. I got another layer to clear out. They go, Charlie, you SOB, look what you've done to me again. You can't feel anybody else's, and it's a whole re-education system to say, I have this feeling. This is mine. When I take what's going on inside of me and I hook it to the outside world, then I think the outside world is cause. Then I think I have to dominate and change the outside world in order not to feel this way. And I'm now stuck in an endless loop. And people who never learn to change that loop get to live the title of my book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? When I create codependent relationship, and we actually have a thing, and we did a show on this back in, it's in the archives, right during or right after the codependent workshops, we did the 12 steps to interdependent relationship. When I start to integrate those steps, then I get to change that dynamic. But we look out through the content of our unconscious and we'll automatically be resonated into the space of someone who has the perfect matching bag of garbage, and they're going to show us what we need to do. The end of denial, the ownership, the responsibility, means that through that relationship you can heal and you get to create healthy relationships.
So even though he's been with somebody else for 6 months, and he probably, I don't think he thinks there's a lot of garbage in that relationship, but they must have matching bags of garbage, right?
Yeah, well, people can go for some time before they'll allow that veil to start to open and things to start to come. It's a gradual thing. There's a thing we talk about in our Healing Through Relationships workshop that we call the file folder effect. The file folder effect says this: when two files that are not associated in the mind fire at the same time, they become associated, they become linked. In the future, whenever one of the files fires, the other one fires. So if we, let me just give a demonstration. I'm going to, unless you've heard me do this example, you've got two files. Everybody on our radio show's got two files in their mind that have probably never been hooked together before, and I'm going to hook them together for you right now. I'm going to ask you not to think about a purple alligator. Now, when I say don't think about a purple alligator, what happens? Your file, somebody could put the mute button on, you're making a lot of noise. Somebody could put your mute button on, you're making a lot of noise. Hello? If somebody could put your mute button on, you're making a lot of noise. Thank you. Cool. So when I say don't think about a purple alligator, those two files link together automatically. If on the show tomorrow I said don't think about a purple, what would come to your mind? Alligator, because those files are now associated. If 20 years from now I said to you don't think about a purple, what would come to mind? Well, alligator might not. However, at some level in the mind, those brain cells are going to be firing. And when they fire, then whatever's associated in those two files is going to begin to fire simultaneously. So if in my relationship I'm in interdependence and this person fires my sadness, as long as my file, so to speak, on them is clean and clear, and this person fires my sadness, if I don't take responsibility for my sadness, then what's going to happen is I'm going to link sadness to my brain's image of them. And then if they fire my fear and I don't own and forgive my fear, I'm going to link fear to them: anger, rage, grief, and pain. And that's where people wake up one morning and go, what the hell am I doing here with you? I can't stand how I feel when I'm around you. And it's got nothing whatsoever to do with them. It's got to do with what one has hooked up in their brain. So in creating healthy relationship, every time sadness, grief, fear, rage, anger, terror, domination comes up, if I've got one of two choices. I can either forgive it, which means remove it from my field, or it will hook into my brain's image of them. I hook enough garbage into my brain's image of them, and I think I can't stand them. And what it really is, I can't stand what they resonate that I've hooked into my brain's image of them, and I'm in a full codependent relationship. So when you get two people who actually, with integrity, stop the blame game and go, I'm feeling this, I realize I've been feeling this all my life, I realize I need to work through it. Then together you get to work through it. If you never allow that stuff to come to the surface and become conscious, then it impacts decisions and behavior from that dissociated or unconscious state. In the Aramaic, interestingly enough, they had a suffix they added to a word that represented unconscious dynamics impacting decisions and behavior. Whenever you added the suffix uta to a word in Aramaic, that meant that there was something in the unconscious mind that was totally out of awareness. Like 20 years from now, I say, don't think about purple. Just give me a second. A helicopter's going overhead. Life on the road. So when I say don't think about a purple alligator, at some level fires, although I may not be aware of it. It was 20 years ago when you said that, Michael. I don't know. But it impacts perception, decisions, behavior. Whatever I've hooked into my brain's image of someone else impacts, from an unconscious level, decisions, perception, and behavior. And what will happen is, out of my power person dynamics, I will always create a story that justifies why what I'm feeling in me, in those Uta brain cells, is this person's fault if I'm in the codependent relationship and I'm in the blame game. It's their fault I'm feeling this, and I never get to heal. There's no need to heal relationships. Every relationship is a perfect creation. But through your relationships, you can heal. That's why we have a workshop called Healing Through Relationships. Does that make sense?
Yeah. How do we choose somebody to be in a primary relationship with them? And you know what? I thought it was interesting. This guy I had sent him some blank worksheets, and the one he chose to do was a power person worksheet. And I don't think I had the chance to tell him he should do it on his parents, or I had at one point, but he ended up doing a power person worksheet on me. And I thought that was interesting. And I just suggested maybe he should do them on his parents too, but I don't know for sure. But
well, and that situation, from what you shared with me, that will probably be a difficult one to approach because of the circumstances of the passing of his parents. That'll be a biggie. That'll be one for further down the road. I would suggest starting with worksheets around, I went to the office this morning and somebody cut me off in traffic and I, yelled at them. Or I wanted to yell at them. I'd suggest doing simple, small issues first, and not those big major life issues.
Okay. So how do you choose a life partner?
Well, the only thing, if you look, some cultures, the one you're from originally, and there's some sanity to it in some ways, you didn't choose a life partner. Your parents did. They arranged your marriage. And that's dynamic in many cultures that, to a degree, has some sanity to it if it's a sane culture. Now, of course, there are some insane cultures where they arrange marriages and it's all about money and power and all that sort of thing. But that's one. And the other is you do your work, you be as conscious as you can be, you communicate up front about what you're looking to create in your life, and you make sure that you're in agreement as to what you're going to create in your life. Now, if the person that you're in relationship with agrees to that and doesn't clean up their power person dynamics, then everything they'd agreed to will become a reason to beat up on you and tell you how, I didn't really agree to that, and there's the next level and the next layer of that power person dynamic. Recently I worked with someone and I learned what I consider to be a really important piece about the codependent dynamic, and that is, we've talked, for years now about you'll do what your power person did that you hated the most when you're ultra stressed. And you'll tend to create a home that replicates what the dynamic was with the power person. And so let's say for instance, someone who's in a home where, and this is a recent happening that I tapped into, and it really taught me an important lesson about codependence. If I'm in a home where I'm under threat all the time as a child, so the power person always holds a threat. Let's say a child who's sexually abused, and they're under threat all the time. Then what will tend to happen is they'll tend to create a home where they will be under threat all the time. And because that was what the power person did, and it could be a father, an uncle, a brother, sister, whatever, what will happen is whatever that power person did that they hated the most, that is, threaten them, they'll tend to set their future relationships up on the basis of threat. And they'll always hold on to something with which to create a threat. So the threat will be something like, well, you're not good enough because, and so I'm leaving. And so if one lived under a power person who was always threatening, then they will become the threatener. If one lived under a power person who used them to project all their feelings, then later they'll become the user who uses their partner in order to avoid being responsible for their feelings. They'll put all their feelings into their brain's image of their partner, and it'll always be the partner's fault. So they'll go on and create relationship after relationship after relationship where the good old family feeling will be threatened, and if there's no justification whatsoever for feeling threatened, they will hallucinate being threatened. That dominating word you used? So the child, for instance, who was sexually abused in a home, feels threatened all the time, now sets a home up where there's sexual abuse. That will be the that will be the attraction, and that will be the matching bags of garbage and the opportunity to heal. Then what will happen, that person will, it's like I hook too much stress into my brain's image of them, or they're just playing crazy because they're playing out the same power person dynamic, so I leave. If I don't work those issues out, then I'll go about looking for somebody else. I'll look out through my unconscious dynamics, find somebody else who will be able to sexually abuse me, someone else who will threaten me, and I'll set my life up so that, it's kind of like the U.S. and Russia did, mutually assured destruction, MAD, where the insane run the game, and the way they keep things under control is they're on the threat of destroying each other all the time. So then that person may leave that relationship, and they'll go out. Now, let's say they go into a relationship where there's no threat, there's no sexual abuse. They'll still hallucinate reasons to feel threatened, and they'll still, it's like they'll hold an ace in the hole, a card back, where when the stress is up and the chips are down, they will use that ace in the hole to threaten their partner. And that's just the dynamic of this carbon-based memory. It's a storage system that carries these things on and on and on. And it's a perfect opportunity for those who live in that situation to go, okay, the truth is I'm in a safe space. I don't need to play the threat game anymore. I don't need to withhold and keep an ace in the hole that I can always go back to threat with in order to replicate my power person's behavior and feel like now I can win. Because what happens is to the small child, their power person is God. They've got control over them. So the child who was sexually abused by someone in their household, that power person has control over them, and so they watch that power person as a small child, and again, the power person has more power over them than they do, and it's considered to be by the child's survival. And so any time in the future, until they forgive the content of those brain cells, any time in the future, that person, 50 years later, will look back into the file on the power person and go, when that original power person was needing to control me and win, what did they do? They threatened me. Okay, here I go. Now I'll pull my ace in the hole out. I'll play my card, which I hold for threat, and now I'll threaten the partner who's no threat at all, who's got nothing to do with sexual abuse, and in fact is there to nurture and support. And that's where the forgiveness process, that's where the new learning of, I have to learn to be responsible and to forgive what never belonged to me in the first place. As I do that, I change that dynamic. But you don't walk into a relationship. There's a story that a friend of Tim Hayes's tells. This fellow's a teacher, and his name isn't coming to me. It'll come to me as I speak about it. But he tells this cool story about this guy who's going out of town on a trip, and his friend, he hears, is opening a new business. So he's going to stop on the way out of town to see his new friend, and his new friend is putting up a sign for his business, handmade wooden chairs. And he congratulates him and says, I'll see you in 6 months when I get back. And 6 months later, he comes back, and his friend is putting a new sign up on his business, and he's kind of surprised. It's only been 6 months, and his friend is putting up a sign that says handmade wooden furniture. And he's like, well, what are you doing? I thought you were doing handmade wooden chairs. The guy says, well, I just found out that I wasn't very good at working with wood, so I stopped making the chairs. And the guy says, well, how come you're doing handmade wooden furniture? He said, well, I just thought I'd try again and it would be different. And so many people go into relationship after relationship after relationship. They acquire no skills. They will take no responsibility. They will do no work. And then they wonder why they're back in the same boat again and again and again. And so it's about creating a different boat, a different content of the mind.
So, Michael, someone in the chat room wanted to know, they said if they were bullied in school and their father didn't help them or didn't stand up for them, then the father's a power person. How do they become a power person? How would they become someone who maybe doesn't help? Or
well, again, watching the person who's the power person. The definition of a power person, and in that case, this person would have two power persons. The bully would tend to be a power person, and the father would tend to be a power person. For most people, mom and or dad are power persons, or both of them. The way you tell who a key power person is whose behavior do you do when the stress is up and the chips are down. So if your power person was one who was threatening to you, and then when the stress is up and the chips are down, you go into threat toward your partner, then you know that was your power person. So if you look at the case of the bully, and the bully was physically abusive, if you find that when the stress is up and the chips are down, the tendency was to become physically abusive, then you know the bully is the prime power person. If the stress is up and the chips are down, and instead of the bully, one goes into withdrawal and weakness and I can't do anything, then you know that the dad was the power person. And so both are power persons, and the way that you change this game is that you dismantle the power person dynamics through forgiveness. And again, if you are not familiar with what we're talking about with forgiveness, forgiveness is the tool with which you change the content of your mind. It's the tool with which you change that power person dynamic. That's how forgiveness occurs. And so how do you do that? Well, that's the worksheet. Go to www.whyagain.com, and on the right-hand side there's a link that says Download Worksheets, and the first 4 links will give you the whole forgiveness story. It'll give you a new chapter 24 in the book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? It'll give you the reality management worksheet. That's the second link. The third link and the fourth link are 2 radio shows where we guide somebody through the whole process. So you've got a custom, personal set of instructions for going through the worksheet process. And so that's what you want to do. And you just have to develop the discernment to keep observing yourself and going, oh, that's what I'm doing. Oh, that's mine. Oh, gee, here I want to blame. And if you look at the dynamic of the power person, most power persons blamed their children. Most parents blamed their children, or many parents, for what they were experiencing and feeling and their failures and such. We actually had a woman in a workshop a few weeks ago, and this woman, we were asking people, what kind of messages did you get from your power person? And this poor soul, she shared that she was 6 years of age when her father came to her and said, when you were born, you ruined our whole family. Until you came along, our family was doing fine. What a message to give to a 6-year-old child. But if that's what becomes the controlling factor in that child's life, then you watch the messages that they'll hand to the people they're in relationship with, and it's going to be messages like, you've ruined my life. And one who chooses to be responsible can forgive, that is, remove the dynamic, the belief, the reality that somebody else ruined their lives. And they can throw that out, and all of a sudden, instead of ruin, life becomes a delight. Life becomes an awesome, empowering experience. And that's what we're here to support everybody in creating.
Okay, and so then they ask, I'm going to back over. As people are writing, it rolls my screen up. It's hard for me to follow sometimes. So if they're in the situation where there's a bully and then the dad that's not taking care of them, so even though the pain that is in them is theirs to deal with.
Right. Yes.
Can they avoid that situation for their own protection, or should they stay there in order to deal with what's coming up with them?
Well, at any given time, we all have the right to say, enough is enough, this is not how I want to live, I'm out of here. Everybody's got that choice at any given time. And so the thing we suggest is if you decide that it's time to get out because this is too abusive, you just got punched in the nose one too many times and I'm getting out of here, then what happens is you take responsibility and you recognize that what you're experiencing is yours and it's time to be finished with it. It's time to get free of it. And as you do, you heal that internal dynamic in yourself and you continue to do your work around that dynamic.
Okay, and then there's another. Oh, go ahead.
So, if you choose to leave a relationship, make sure that you continue to do your work, or I guarantee it'll be, why is this happening to me again? And every time somebody blames somebody else, the way we create this dissociated state of mind is by blaming someone else for what's going on inside of us. One of the things we point out in our Healing Through Relationships workshop is that what happens is two people go into relationships and person one has problem one and blames person two for it and wants person two to solve the problem. Person two has problem two, blames it on person one and wants person one to solve the problem. And, nobody's going to solve the problem for you. Nobody can change the content of your mind. It's all about the content of your mind. You can't feel something other than what's going on inside of you. However, you can create the hallucination. When we go into denial, we create this hallucination. We literally build an image of others' bodies out of the content that we don't want to deal with. And then they show up in our mind with our problem attached, and we swear it must be their problem. And it is the opportunity, once again, to learn forgiveness, to learn to change the content of my mind, to change what's going on inside of me. And that's the forgiveness process. So the standard you begin to live by, instead of if I'm in pain, somebody else is an SOB and did it to me, the standard you live by is if I'm in pain, I have a piece of work to do. Thank you, partner, for showing me my pain. I think I'll work through this now. I think I will disassemble my very capacity to experience this particular quality of pain. And as I do, I get free of it. And I thank the person who shows it to me rather than wanting to puke on them and do what my power person did to me. Again, if one was brought up in a home where a threat occurred, then this person will become a threatener. They hated it when they were threatened, but in their dissociated mind, that's the way you win. That's the way you get on top. That's the way you stay safe. That's the way you protect yourself. And so that's the dynamic that we're looking to support people in forgiving and changing, because those dynamics have been going on in the family system for thousands of generations. And, I mean, it's so distinct in each case. I worked with a woman yesterday, and she had left her home country and left her child in that country. And as she was dealing with the pain of having done that, and we're doing some breathing and forgiveness around it, all of a sudden she's in touch with how her father had done exactly the same thing. And then what comes up is her grandfather literally left the country the same way she did and left his child behind. And then went to a grandmother who did the same thing. It's pretty extreme to leave a country and leave your child behind. And yet she could go back to 3 generations that had done exactly that. And here she is. And, of course, when one plays a power person dynamic, the mind hallucinates that all the circumstances demand that they do whatever that is. The mind will create rationalization and justification. In this particular case, this woman was in conflict with her spouse, and there was a possibility of a job in another country, and it was like, well, the easy way out of this, I'm not going to have to deal with this relationship and this person. The easy way out is, oh, man, hey, I got this job in this other country. I can make good money. I can get immigration there. Everything will be wonderful. I'm gone. And the Uta brain cells, the unconscious controlling factor, is the genetic predisposition to leave a child behind by moving to a different country. You've got to be careful that you don't allow your mind to hallucinate, and the way you tell when there's a hallucination is whenever there's any form of hostility or fear. You've got to let go of those hallucinations and bring true choice into the picture. Okay, so I have conflicts in my relationship, and here's my child, and I'm going to leave them. Excuse me, I'll pass. I'm going to live by a different principle than that. That's called conscious creation. But unconscious creation, and what we will tend to do is replicate what's gone on through the generations. And if you want to know what's been going on through the generations, just look in the home you were brought up in, and you know exactly what was going on. And be careful, because your mind will always set the circumstance up. It will always make the external the internal picture of the external happening. It'll always make it look like everything's justified to do the same thing as my generations have done. And it's insane. Everything based in hostility or fear destroys human life. And so what we're looking to do is support people in restoring human life. And you can't start at the end. Everybody goes, okay, I'm ready. I want a healthy relationship. And unfortunately, you can't start at the end. You've got to start at the beginning. You start to do your work. And one of the criteria of going into relationship is I'm going to be in a relationship with somebody who wants to do their work. Oh, you're not interested in doing your work. You're interested in, making money and blah, blah, blah. Oh, fine. Love you, honor you, and have a good time. But if you're not interested and not willing to do your work, what's the sense? Because what we're going to do is we're going to simply play out the lives of the fathers. You go back to the ancient scriptures, the physicists who understood how the physics of this worked. They said, look to the lives of the fathers, for ours are but a shadow of theirs upon the earth. Now, even if the fathers' lives were nice lives, you don't want to replicate it because that's death. Just replicating those frequencies from the past, even if they were nice, even if they were pleasant, it's not worth the powder to blow it to hell. You're designed to create an original life, an original, delightful, awesome presence of love in your world, and a life that is a canvas that writes the cutting edge of creation, not the replication of the past, even if it was nice. So sometimes you even get to the point where you start forgiving the nice stuff in you. And remember that forgiveness is going inside yourself and removing what did not belong. It's not letting other people off the hook because that stuff is in there. Any comments in the chat room? Any callers? Our number, by the way, is 646-200-4169. We'd be delighted to be there to support you. Is your mute button on, Jeannie?
Probably.
Oh, okay, got you. There you are.
Sitting there talking. But anyway, there's just one comment in the chat room. The young lady who said she was taking a snow day off can't call in, but she would like to say that the worksheets are working so well in the volunteer house that we're opening up discussions. I really didn't think it was possible, feeling some hurt.
Say that once again.
It's noisy on your end. Okay, yeah, she says she can't call in. However, she would like to say the worksheets are working so well in the volunteer house. We are opening up. In the middle of that fairway over there?
They're opening us. Say it again.
Okay, you want to hit mute. We would like to say that the worksheets are working so well here at the volunteer house that we're opening up discussions I really didn't think were possible and healing some hurts.
that's awesome. And wherever that is, if you're in Florida, maybe we can come and do a workshop that will support you in that process.
It's in Kentucky.
Say again, sweetie?
She's in Kentucky.
Ah, okay. Well, set an invitation up, and we'll see if we can get to Kentucky. That may be a possibility later this year.
Okay, and then there's another person says they're really glad they found this site or the radio show. It all makes so much sense. Someone else says, and David, I'm not real sure. You might need to clarify here. He says, I have one question related to forgiveness and Diane's part. I'm not sure who Diane is. Well, my root and red chakras are underactive, and they used to be closed. I'm working on clearing all the congested energy. So the reason why is when I was a kid, my parents were busy, and I was handed to my aunts for foster care. As a kid, I developed a sense of insecurity. So what's your question? I'm not sure, David.
Well, if he's typing in the chat room while that's going on, the idea would be that you go back, you look at the circumstances today that bring insecurity forward, and that's the congestive energy in those energy centers, and you forgive as to those energies. You remove them, and when you remove them, you undo literally the chemical blocks. You know, there's a fellow named Bruce Lipton who's a cell biologist, and he's showing in the laboratory that when you think a thought, your body produces a molecule. It's called a neuropeptide. And the neuropeptide lands on a cell that has a receptor site that matches, and the cell replicates the neuropeptide chemically, and you get to live with the chemistry of your thoughts. So if those thoughts are congestive, if they're not supportive of the life of the cell, then by engaging in the forgiveness process. And how would I do that in that situation? Well, here I am in a situation where I'm feeling insecure. It's on the job, and my boss, yells. And when the boss yells, I feel insecure. So the number 1A in the worksheet will be the boss. And what's the situation? The boss yells. What's the feeling? I'm insecure. What's the thought? He's going to attack me, or he has attacked me. So now what do I want? Well, I want the boss to be supportive and nurturing of me. You might want to just. So I want him to be supportive and nurturing of me, which is what I want from my power person. And so the forgiveness process there, the word forgive is shabag. It literally means to cancel. The forgiveness process is going to be canceling that goal. So I cancel the goal for my boss to nurture and support me, which sounds totally and completely backward, upside down, inside out, and illogical. But when you cancel that goal, what happens is you collapse the projection on the current circumstance that comes from the content of that chakra that holds that congestion, and you crack open the dissociated state that allows your mind to use that energy to create its current hallucination. And when you access that directly, by bringing love present into that part of the structure, you start to dissolve that congestive energy. And so that would be the way that you'd start to move through that energy.
Okay.
Any more comment there?
You were actually hitting on it at the same time that he typed in, the fear of insecurity still haunts me. So you were right on when you continued with your conversation there. So you already addressed that. And the lady who talked about doing the worksheets in the volunteer house in Kentucky, she says, this is Vicki. We talked last Saturday, and I called in on Monday.
Awesome.
So you know who she is.
Vicki, we've had a lot going on, and we will be getting back to you and creating that space for Heartland. That's something we're looking forward to doing with you. So we hold you in a blessing, and it's awesome that things are working with us, especially with those young people. That's so fabulous. You're working with those kids and teaching them the forgiveness process. It's amazing what opens, isn't it? Very cool. And if you've got any more to share, we'd love to have you pick up the phone and call us at 646-200-4169 and chat about it.
She says she can't call in. So.
Okay, cool.
All right. And we don't have any other callers. We're down to 10 minutes, though.
Okay. Well, David, do you have any insight? Jeannie, do you have any insight on the conversations we've been having?
Go ahead, Jeannie.
No, go for it, David.
Oh, no, after you. No, after you.
Oh, after you. After you. Well, tee it up. Oh, you know, it's great that there are so many people that are putting the work to use in their life because, you know, there's that understanding on an intellectual level, and then there's the experiential level with it. And what I hear Vicki talking about is that, you know, that by involving herself with other people and introducing the tool, and it just goes to show that a person can take this tool and use it presently without even attending a workshop and just being willing with a couple of other people as well to implement things in their life, because that's work at. You know, how to know anything works as an individual. It's like, how do I know that something really will shift and change? And it's through my experience of using the tools. And from there, then I get to make the shifts. That's really what's key with all of it, is the willingness and to put it into the level of willingness and to put it into action. Only way to make a shift or a change. Well, am I on?
Yes, we were listening to you.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know you're right on, David. And it's the key is using that tool. One kind of a new piece of information. It's actually not new. I've used it before, but I've been finding that recently it's been more useful. There was an ophthalmologist I worked with several years ago, and he would point out in his work with ophthalmology in the brain, he used the eye to inject frequencies into the brain to stimulate and get the brain back in full operation. And he would point out that the number of connections possible in a human brain is 800 times the number of molecules in the known universe. So this neural network of connections comes from and hosts all of the realities, all of the feelings, all of the thoughts of 1,000 generations are what we inherit. And if we let our inheritance run us, we're in trouble. And there are very few people, at least at this stage, there seem to be more and more all the time that are jumping on the bandwagon and saying, okay, I'm going to change the content of my neural net. How do I do that? You forgive. Well, how am I going to change the content of my neural net by forgiving them? You're not. Nothing to do with forgiving them. Forgiveness has nothing to do with anybody else. Forgiveness is the tool with which you go inside yourself and you change the content of your own neural network. And as you do, as you change that 800 times the number of molecules in the known universe connections to hostility and fear, and it doesn't happen in a day or a week or a month or a year or 5 years or 10 years or 20 years or 30 years. I'll have people who'll do, this work for 5 years, and they go, well, obviously I now understand it, and I function above my neural net. No, you don't. That's a fraud. You're kidding yourself. Stop kidding yourself. You don't function above the neural net. It takes decades to do that. And people say, well, if it's going to take that long, I think I'll just forget it. It's like, well, when you recognize your whole life comes out of it, what else is there to do but to upgrade your own neural network? And, yes, it's a long-term project. And, in the same way, I ask people the question in workshops, and it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, but it makes the point. How many, if you're 30, 40, 50 years of age, how many you've showered every day your whole life long would say, I've now showered enough. I'm never going to have to shower again. We know how long it'll take to get pretty stinky, right? Well, it's no different whatsoever in terms of forgiveness. Most people on the planet, if you look around at the rage, the fear, the pain, the trauma, the murder, the divorce rate, the wars, most people are stuck in a stench, and it's the stench of their own neural network that they're blaming on everybody else. You got to shower every day. You got to wash your mind every day. And washing your mind every day looks like doing forgiveness work every day. Our invitation to you, and I think if you've been listening to the show the last few weeks, David, back 40 days back out of the end of the year, invited a group of people, and I think we had about 30 people who participated in that, in doing 5 worksheets a day for 40 days. And the reports were just awesome that people were giving us when they started to do their internal work and started to forgive. We invite you to enter into that awesome process of forgiveness and let loose of what never belonged. Yes, it's going to take time. Yes, it's going to take years. But your whole life comes out of it. You might as well start now. It will never get easier. Jeannie, questions in the chat room? Any callers? Down to a couple of minutes.
David said that definitely answered his question, and thank you. And Vicki says it hurts to shower every day, but the pain of keeping things buried hurts even more. So
absolutely.
She says that reading it's one thing, doing it is another.
So we're delighted you're on the team and doing the work and sharing it with the others there. That's fabulous.
Absolutely.
So, Jeannie, do you have any comments on the conversation so far? Our conversation with the chat room, and any insight that you'd care to share?
No, I've been going through my own process, and so I'm just kind of hanging in there.
Well, we absolutely hold the space, and it's definitely time for a shift on planet Earth in each one of us that says, okay, I'm ready to step in and do what needs to be done to clean up my own neural network, to change the content of my physiology and my mind to the point where I live and embody, actually incarnate a human life. As we get more and more people are willing to do that, it's an awesome thing that happens in our family systems and around the world. And the main one that you do it for, really, as you watch, is those little ones that are coming in. And that they're not going to have to do the drama and trauma if you clean yours up. If you keep playing out the good old family feeling, the family dynamic, guaranteed you watch those young ones and they'll go creating the same stuff. You open the space and you clean it up, and all of that can change. And that's what we're here to support each and every person in changing.
We do have a caller. Area code 541, you're on the air.
Hi, Michael. It's Julie. I thought I'd get in real quick here at the end. Keep you company. I'm up against, I have someone helping me work on taxes, and for the whole last hour when she arrived, I haven't done a thing. I'm actually enrolling her and goofing off with me, and that's how powerful I am. And she's made good use of her time, but you have a hit on a support, another mind shifter for me.
On goofing off?
Yeah, maybe that's it.
Well, how about it's safe and healing, and I always love to do the work I need to do and then create the space to play. It's safe and healing, and I always love to do the work I need to do and then create the space to play.
And then create the space to play?
To play, yes.
The space to play, okay.
Yep.
So what happens?
All right.
Is in the
I'll
morning
tell you what, we're down to just the last. We're down to just a few seconds, so we're going to have to close the show out. Thanks for being with us, and have the best year yet of your eternal life. Blessings. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Mind Shifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeannie, who present that internal Aramaic process of forgiveness. Michael and Jeannie are here every Monday through Friday on Earth Angels Radio. For more on Michael and Jeannie, please visit www.oneself.com. whyagain.com. That's www.whyagain.com.